Back in 2015, the board of the foundation realized that so many of the important policy fights that affected individual liberty and private property rights weren't taking place in the Capitol down the street. They were taking place in federal administrative agencies and in courtrooms. And they thought it was important for us to be involved in those fights because at that point, there just weren't a lot of conservatives on the battlefield.
This was in the days of Obama saying, "I've got a pen and I've got a phone."
We are not just going to be waiting for legislation. I've got a pen and I've got a phone. And I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward.
So the Center for the American Future's first lawsuit was to sue the Obama administration to stop the Bureau of Land Management's unconstitutional land grab in Texas along the Red River. An Obama Bureau of Land Management surveyor had just decided for himself to rewrite the boundary of federal lands in Oklahoma, and when he did so, now the federal boundaries overlapped into Texas and claimed as federal lands private property that had been for generations owned by Texans. And we signed them up and we represented them and the local governments and built a huge coalition and won that lawsuit, setting national news that saved people's homes from being taken away by the federal government.
The biggest difference in CAF and a lot of the other organizations that do this kind of work is we don't file cases that nibble at the edges. We want to file the cases that set the precedent that not only puts the government back in its box, but over time makes that box smaller. And I think the best example of that is the vaccine mandate case. Back when the Biden administration first took office, they created a federal vaccine mandate. If you had more than 100 employees, you had to get your employees vaccinated with the COVID vaccine. Now, tons of public interest organizations filed lawsuits about the vaccine mandate. Each of those lawsuits presupposed that the government could mandate vaccinations. They just argued that they didn't check the right boxes, or they didn't use the right agency, or they didn't go through the right process. We argued that the federal government didn't have the authority to mandate private medical decisions, full stop, period, because the federal government is one of limited and enumerated powers. And the Commerce Clause, which is what they had always pointed to for everything, didn't justify regulating these sorts of private medical decisions. And not only did we win that case on that theory, but that precedent now has allowed us to bring other cases rolling back federal administrative overreach.
By the support of those that allow us to have a litigation center, we are in a position to represent individuals and businesses and families that, through no fault of their own, are being threatened with unconstitutional action by the government.
For example, in 2018, we represented Frank Powelson. And Frank Powelson was fined $47,000 for removing his own trees from his own private property to stop flooding. So if a private firm were litigating that case, it would have cost Frank over $400,000 in order to overturn a $47,000 fine. That would never make economic sense, and the government knows that, and that's why it's so important that we can do the things that we do.
Typically, having a case reach the Supreme Court of either the United States or of Texas is a career milestone achievement for any organization or any attorney. And it's amazing that in the 10 short years that TPPF has had our Center for the American Future, we have had 2 cases reach the United States Supreme Court where we were counsel of record. And we have also argued 3 cases before the Texas Supreme Court where we were the lead counsel there. And it gives a testament to the amazing work of our litigation team that our cases in such a short period of time have been accepted by the highest courts of our land.
I am just an ordinary person, right? And I'm taking on a giant city. If you look at New Braunfels, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation, which means they have a lot of resources, a lot of power, and I'm just the little guy, right? And so I appreciate the fact that there are places like the Texas Public Policy Foundation who care about my rights.
It's absolutely impressive to see the power and the speed that they have to be able to go after these things and fight them. The mandatory sick pay would have been millions of dollars, but we just would not have had the resources to fight it. When they stepped in and took over, it was literally a godsend for us.
I'm so grateful that I was able to sit down and talk with TPPF, Texas Public Policy Foundation, because this organization is the one organization that I thought would actually stand up for Texans and stand up for all Americans in the United States and fight the federal government when they're overstepping the bounds.
So whether it was in stopping the Biden administration COVID vaccine mandate, whether it was stopping the Red River land grab, whether it was going to court to preserve the property rights of our clients, the cases we win are now cited as precedent by litigants in other cases, by courts, and so we have changed the law in these victories that have won not just for our clients, but for the entire country.
The more that we have donations from people like you, is the more cases that we can bring. It's the more attorneys we can hire. It's the more flights we can take down to New Orleans and DC to litigate in these courts. It's the more that we can go out and sit at kitchen tables with potential clients and get the good stories and the good facts that allow us to bring the important cases that are going to set precedent that change not just the lives of our clients, but the lives of generations of Americans to come. How much would you pay to reinvigorate an original meaning of the Constitution? How much would you pay to get government off the backs of ordinary Americans and leave them free to run their lives? I think it's an important question to ask. How much would you pay to know that you don't have to fear your government and that your government should fear you?